Hey everyone, how are you? Today we are doing the creative challenge, which looks a little bit like this. And you can do this. I'm going to do it on the round stone. Um, you do have a set of coasters. If you want to use the coasters, it would work the same way. So you can do either. First, you want to paint your stone black, and then once you have your stone painted black, you want to make your marks on there. We are using the 16 arm stencil. And then the colors that I'm using today, aside from the black, are the orange, the green, the white, and the purple. So I'm going to get those out. And then one of the additional design elements is the pumpkins here. So you can have your pumpkins and your glue if you want to use pumpkins. You could also replace the pumpkin if you don't like those with one of the gems if you wanted to. So you can embellish it however you want to. So I've got my paint there and going to make my stencil marks next. It is probably not necessary to add every single line mark as you go out. Once you start the pattern, it's easier to fill it in properly, but it's up to you how many marks you make. But at least you want to have your north, south, east, and west lines. And then if you want to add some extra, that's always helpful. Today's design is a spiral, and once you learn how to do the spiral, you can repeat it with any different colors you want. It's pretty fun to do. But we're going to start with our center dot. And for that, I'm using my purple tool, which is 6 millimeters, and the white paint. And then for our next row, we're going to use our blue stylus on the small end, and we're going to make some 1mm dots. And so I'm going to line up my lines so that I've got one going north and south. And I'll start with a white. And on the line, you're going to make a dot at the top and a dot at the bottom. So at your north and south with your white on the small end, make 2 dots. Now for this one, we want to end up with 8 dots. And so if you've made all 16 lines, you're going to skip a line. In the next line, we're going to do orange, same size, the 1mm. We're going to put that on a line. So if you've got 8 lines, it would be the next line. If you made all 16, it would be skip a line and then dot. Then we're going to do the same thing with green and then purple. So skip a line and then dot the green. And then skip a line and dot the purple. And then what we're going to do is switch to the large end of the blue, and we're going to move this pattern over 1 space for the next row. So I'm going to go back to my whites in the center here. I'm going to add a 1.5mm dot in the next row on the line that we skipped. And so it ends up being in between the white and the orange. And then directly across from the white and the orange. And we do that for each color. We're just moving it over 1 space. Then we're going to switch to the green stylus. We're going to repeat this pattern starting with the small end. So I'm going to go back to my white. And I'm going to add a 2.5 millimeter dot on the next line, so it looks like we're moving up. So white, white, white. And then down here, we're going to do the same thing. White, white, white. And then you turn it one click, and then you're going to do the same thing with the orange, the green, and the purple, just shifting it over one line. Then we're going to flip to the large end of the green stylus. That's 3 millimeters. And we're going to continue this pattern. So I'm going to line my white back up at the top and bottom. And I'm going to go over one row and up one row and add a white. And over here, over one and kind of up one and add a white. And then I'm going to repeat with the next 4 colors. Next, we're going to move up to our 6 millimeter or our purple tool, and we're going to keep repeating the same pattern. So I'm going to use this, line up my last white dot again up at the top. Then I'm going to go over one and up just a little bit and add a white dot, but this time I'm going to do 2. So I'm going to take the 6 millimeter and do 2 and just make sure I shift the next one over. And so I start with white and then I move to orange and do the same thing. And we just keep on going with the colors. So green is next and then purple. Then we're going to continue with this pattern one more row. This time I'm going to switch to my 8mm tool. And then I'm going to reline up my white. I'm going to go over one row and up a little bit. Trying to say hi, buddy. And I'm going to go through all the colors again, orange, green, and purple. I've got a few that are just extra juicy and they're right on that edge, so I'm just removing a little bit of paint so they don't drip. But that is the main pattern of the spiral. And then for the next step, what we're going to do is start walking the dots around the end circles. And so to start with, I'm going to use my blue stylus and just white paint for each one of the last dots. And I'm using white on every one. And I'm going to start the middle dot with the large end of the blue stylus. I'm going to do that middle dot everywhere first. And I'm going to switch to the small end as I walk the dots around those circles. I'm sorry, I am moving kind of quick today. I'll pause for a bit so everybody can get on the same page before I keep going. I'll take like a 5-minute break over here. That way, if you're working, we'll all continue with the same last couple of steps. All right, so I'm going to pick up where we stopped after that little break. We might not be all on the same page, but hopefully we're a little bit closer. as I continue, so if you're looking at your cheat sheet, we left off on this step 5, and you'll see we had a little printing error here on step 6. I sent it to the printer with all the pictures and it came back missing one. When it got switched to a PDF, it just disappeared. So the invisible step is what we're working on now. So what I'm going to do is we're going to walk the dots with the second row. So we did our first row on every dot with white. For the second row, I'm going to dot the first dot with the 3 millimeters in the color of the circle that we're dotting on. So I'm going to start the white dot with a white dot, 3 millimeters. That's the green tool on the large end. And I'm up over my edge on this one. You'll see on this rock, I worked a little closer, so I'm not over my edge. So I'm going to try to do this without sticking my fingers in paint. But on the purple one, I'm going to use a 3 millimeter purple dot. And then so on. So with a green one, we get a green dot. And then orange is an orange dot. And then depending on your spacing, you could either use the small end of the green for 2.5 millimeters, or you could go down a size and use the blue on the large end, which is 1.5. Use whatever works best in the space that you have, but I'm going to continue walking the dots around each one in the color of the main dot there. So I'm working on this green one and it will look something like that. And I'm just going to switch colors for each one so that they're matched up with the large dot that surrounds it, or that it surrounds. And for the next step, we are going to do some center dots in the colors. And so for this step, I'm going to go back to my blue stylus on the large end. And I'm going to show you, I'll show you on the orange here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dip the large end of the blue all the way in the paint. I want this to be nice and painty. And then in between each dot, I'm going to walk the dots, but I'm not going to do it around any circle. I'm going to do it down the line. And so I'm going to start one here and just keep going. And I'm not going to re-dip. And what happens is they'll get smaller and they'll fit in between those spaces. So it's just like walking the dots around a circle, except I'm starting kind of over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just bringing it down the row and just filling in some of that extra space. And I'm going to do that for each color. And so you end up doing that 8 times, one for each spiral. The next step is top dots, and I did my top dots with black. So what you want to do is pick 2 colors. So I alternated. I did green, skip the purple, and then I did white. Skip the orange, green, skip the purple, white. So all my whites have a top dot and all my greens have a top dot. So you just want to pick which one you want to start with. So maybe this time I'll start with purple, and I'll do purple and orange. And so for this, you need some black paint. Or, you can top dot. I always say you can top dot however you want. You can always change up the design. But I'm going to use my green stylus on the large end, the 3mm end. And again, I'm going to get this lots of paint on there. And I'm going to start my top dot at the end. And then again, just walk it down. And as it continues, it gets smaller. So I'll do that. I'm doing my orange this time. On my sample stone, I did green and white. On this one, I'm going to do orange and purple, just to shake it up. So I have 2 different stones. We just walk the dots right down the spiral. And then I have one right in the center. And you can top dot every one, or you can skip like I did. Top dots are kind of a personal preference. I'll keep going just to keep myself busy before we move on to the next step. So this is what it looks like if you top dot everything. This is what it looks like if you just do a couple. You could also not do top dots at all. Totally your call. And then our very last step would be to add your pumpkins or rhinestones or both. I'm going to add 8 pumpkins. And so I'm going to get my little craft glue, and the pumpkins I just placed in between the end row. So it would be the line in between each where you would place those. And so I know when we finish, our spacing is going to be a little different, just because that's how it works. But I put a little glue on, and then you can kind of dip into the glue to pick up your pumpkin and place it on there. And the only thing I'll mention is I kind of like to have the stems all going the same direction. I think it looks a little bit better.
Does it take a lot of glue, or I mean, do we cover the whole pumpkin?
I just put it always it will give you probably more glue than you need, but I just make a dot with the glue.
Oh, okay.
And then it'll come through the eyes and the mouth a little bit. And so I'll go all the way around and get them set on there. And then you can kind of smooth that out with your dotting tool once it's stuck pretty good. But the
Okay.
glue will dry clear. And if you're up over the edge, like mine is on a curve, and so they kind of are sticking off a little bit. What I did on the sample was I just went back with a little glue on the top, kind of where it curved. So I put it on the mouth so that it would kind of go underneath a little bit. And I just held it down until it dried a smidge and it kind of stuck it in place.